All right, we are live. Okay, so I think there's going to be some things in this presentation that some of you might already find familiar, but I'm hoping that I can give you some tools and structure to make the process easier. The title is How to Integrate Data into Your Product Lifecycle. I probably would change that to Analytics if I could rewrite it, but that's the one that I submitted months ago. Kind of thinking more about the process of analytics rather than just having some data in there. But yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. And that's me. I made sure to wear a different shirt this year, but this is the same jacket. And if you want to find me on LinkedIn after this, I'm pretty easy to find. I work in SEO, so pretty good at that part. And this is our team of analysts at Axolotl Digital. It's kind of a tough word to say, and it actually comes from Nahuatl. It's a type of salamander native to Mexico. We picked it as our mascot because it's an indicator species, and obviously because it's very cute. So the presence of axolotls in a body of water can tell you whether or not it's a healthy ecosystem and what the pollution levels are like. So we felt like it was a good metaphor for the kind of work, the analytics work we do, helping you understand the health of your website. axolotldigital.com is not quite finished, but it will be very soon. Here's a little bit about me. I recently checked off a major bucket list item, going to Italy with my dad, and on the left you'll see a picture of my dad and I in front of the church where my grandparents got married in Carini in Sicily. Skiing is one of my favorite hobbies. I grew up skiing a small mountain near my hometown of State College, PA. And more later in life, I got into surfing. Still not too good, but I can catch maybe half the waves. And then on the right, that's my first and second Drupal GovCons. So I'm happy to be here for the third time presenting. Thank you all for making your way all the way down the hall and finding this room. And I like to visualize the process of analytics as this cycle right here. Later on, we'll talk about how the cycle gets started because it doesn't really, it doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's a circle, but there is kind of a beginning that makes it a little bit trickier. But basically, I want to focus on these 4 stages. So first, we have measurement. We're collecting data. This could be page views, downloads, clicks on different buttons, time on page, many other metrics, and a lot of it is determining what metrics we want to collect there as well. Then we have analysis. So we're going to analyze that data, look for patterns, anomalies. I'm saying that right, but it just feels like I'm saying it wrong. We ask questions and we interpret the data we have collected. So then at this point we get some insights. And then we use those insights to develop a strategy to make our website better. And finally, we implement that strategy on our website, and then we start the cycle again, and we measure the data after our new strategy has been implemented, and we compare it to the first round of data we collected. We analyze that, and we evaluate if our strategy worked or not. Then we fine-tune our strategy to be even better. Or if it didn't work, we throw it out, and we come up with a new one. And on we go, getting closer and closer to perfectly meeting all of our users' needs. I think I need to click harder. There we go. All right. So where do we begin? Our very first measurement phase we call discovery, which I'm sure you guys all know and have that term as well. So you're starting on a new project and you might not know anything about the website or its users, so you have to learn and absorb everything you can before you start recommending changes. That may seem obvious, but there are times when agencies use more of like a best practices and one-size-fits-all approach to recommend a new design without fully understanding the specific context of the website and its users. So I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir, saying really obvious things, but it doesn't happen every time. I think about the discovery phase in 2 categories, learning and capacity building. In future measurement phases, we ideally won't have to do much capacity building. So this one is unique because you're setting up all your data collection from scratch, and after that you probably only have to make small adjustments. So on the learning side, that includes both quantitative and qualitative data, as well as data exploration to understand the quality of the data being collected, and then you're doing the groundwork of defining goals and KPIs, setting up tags to track those KPIs, and building a whole taxonomy of data collection that is consistent and delivers data that is aligned to your goals. So 2 years ago, my presentation was about KPIs. It's out there on YouTube somewhere if you want to find it. And I don't know if Sarah and Bruno, if you guys were in that one or if you're in the one last year, just the one last year. So that one had a real small crowd. So it's on YouTube somewhere. I can send you the link if you ever want it. But yeah, that's one of the key parts at the beginning of this. The data collection, maybe that will be next year's presentation because that's a pretty big one. I'm not going to go into it a ton into the technical side of it. I'm just going to kind of say there's going to be some data collection in this early phase, in this discovery phase. So far, are you with me? Is everything making sense? Any weird terms or anything? Awesome. Okay. Let me know if anyone has questions. Obviously, we have a small group, so happy to stop and talk about whatever we want to talk about. And we probably have a little bit of time built into the presentation too, if anyone has specific questions they want to bring up. So now I'm just going to go through the different phases a little bit. So measurement is like the grocery shopping of analytics, and we know that the best meals start with great ingredients. So we're doing our data collection and cleaning, creating additional tags as our KPIs shift. So that's really more once we've gone around the circle, maybe at least once. We might shift our KPIs a little bit as we learn more, and then we're going to have to collect some different data point probably to answer the new questions that we have. And cleaning, I feel like kind of goes without saying. We want to make sure we have clean data, make sure it's all well aligned and usable. And then data visualizations. So this part is about building the dashboard and using those KPIs to answer key questions in our dashboard. And then when we get to analysis, we will be using that dashboard. So this is where we identify our strengths and weaknesses, looking at the data with a critical eye, challenging assumptions, and trying to draw conclusions where possible. What story is the data telling, and why does this matter? For strategy, this is where we're taking those pain points that we've identified in analysis, and we're actually addressing them. We're coming up with a new design, a new marketing strategy. We can kind of apply it to any part of the work that we do, as well as expanding on our strength. It doesn't always have to be fixing something that's going wrong. We can also find that hey, this email campaign we're doing is going really well. Maybe we should do another one. Maybe we should do more of that. We're also adapting based on learnings from our analysis phase, or just generally we're adapting everything that we are doing based on what we've learned. Again, this sometimes seems obvious, but it doesn't always actually happen. And we're also doing prototyping and testing, which I put as a mini cycle, because really in that case you kind of go around all of these phases in that prototype and test process as well. And then we are launching a new design, celebrating, woohoo, we did it, and taking a minute to feel good about ourselves before we jump right back in and we do it all over again. Because as soon as we put out a new website, a new page, whatever it is, that's day one of our new data set, seeing how people react to it. All right, so now I'm gonna go into, take a look at my KPI framework. That was the subject of my talk a couple years ago. And just briefly, I have examples in here. I'm gonna give you guys, show you guys a little bit more about this specific example from USA.gov that I worked on last year. But right now I just kind of want to show this is what this is what this process looks like. So starting with goals in this case is to educate users about how to find benefits. I'm actually gonna pivot a little bit and go show you guys the tool and then come back to this. All right, this is what the tool looks like. So we worked on this benefit finder tool for USA Gov, and basically you get here, this is the retirement path. There's a few different versions of it. You get to the start page, you click at the bottom, start finding benefits, and you kind of have this little bit of instructions. You go through, you answer questions. In this case, there's 2 pages of questions, but just showing you 1 page. And then you get these results telling you that you might be eligible for these benefits based on the way you answer the questions, so that you can go and apply for them on your own. When you open, so these little accordions at the bottom, you open one of those, and this is what you get. So Social Security, disability insurance, based on the answer that I put in, I'm likely eligible, and it tells me like why I'm eligible there as well. And then I can click at the bottom and go to the SSA website, and I can actually do the application. So now let's go back. Makes a little bit more sense with more context. So one of our goals was to educate users about how to find benefits. Before this tool existed, people had to individually visit different agencies to see if they were eligible for benefits. And the Benefit Finder tool was created to consolidate those processes into one tool that at least tells you which benefits to apply for. You still have to go to the agency website, but we wanted to make sure users understood that there would still be another step after completing the form. And I think in an ideal world, we would have been able to put that all together, but that's, it's always going for the MVP, iterative. So one step closer by giving people this Benefit Finder tool, and then they still have one more step. So we wanted to make sure that they understand that process. Our strategy was to explain the process on the start page and including the disclaimer that it's not an application. So I'm kind of charting out exactly what we're trying to do and what impact we think it will have. And this process, I feel, makes it a lot easier for us to go back as we're collecting data and verify our claims. A lot of times we're in meetings and somebody might say, oh yeah, we need to make sure we include this, and someone else might have a different opinion about it, and at the end of the day, the data might show that one person was right or another person, but we don't have it written out, we haven't formalized, like this is why we did it, and a lot of times we can come back then and say like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, or like it definitely, like we kind of twist things sometimes at the end. So I think it's very helpful for us to be clear about what our strategy is, why we're doing this, what we think it's going to achieve, and then we can measure directly aligned to that. So along with that, we have a hypothesis, pretty similar, but basically this is where we're saying like what we think that's going to achieve. Users may think that the tool is an application and give up before applying on the agency website. That's what I was afraid of, and other people on the team as well kind of voiced that as a fear that we had if we don't put that out there. And so the KPI we came up for this one, it was tricky because something like a number of page views or downloads isn't going to really tell us what we need to know here. So we put together an experiment on a platform called usertesting.com, where you can kind of get participants in to test out your website and give them some true or false questions. So one quick refresher of what the analytics cycle looks like, and then we're going to kind of bring it together. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. It is all going to come together, but hold on to the KPIs for a second. I'm going to bring together the analytics cycle a little bit more. So here's some data from the Benefit Finder tool and the funnel that we created. So you can see, I don't know if my pointer doesn't work on here, but yeah, you can see at the bottom viewing the start page is the first step, view questions, submit responses, view results page, opening the accordion, and clicking the benefit link. So at this point, we've done our data collection. We're using this data to identify our pain points, and it also helps us then to collect more data to figure out why it's a pain point. So that's when we'll get back to the user testing experiment. Helps us to design a solution, and then we test that solution. So that's kind of putting together this whole cycle. So from this chart, can anyone identify one pain point? Looking at this data, is there anything that stands out?
Opening the benefit accordion.
Number 5, opening the benefit accordion. Yeah, why would you say that?
It seems like they might not have understood to open it, or known how to, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they didn't understand, maybe they didn't know how to open it. We don't know why yet, but we can see that there is a huge gap between number 4 and number 5. Anybody else see any other ones?
It's a gap between 1 and 2.
1 and 2, yep. Any more?
I mean,
5.
I guess, yeah, between 5 and 6.
5 and 6, yeah, that's the
Like
other
the
one.
ultimate conversion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the final action. Which to me, the gap between 1 and 2 makes some sense, because people tend to maybe just check something out and I'm not going to commit to actually filling it out. But then 5 and 6, those two are a little bit harder for you to understand, because at this point these people have actually gone through, it only takes a minute or two, but they've gone through and answered a handful of questions and their results are right there and they're still not clicking on it. So that part is a little bit more was a little bit more of a head scratcher for me. So yeah, we wanted to know why people are dropping off. Is it because they're confused about what should happen here? Maybe is the content too long or too short? Lots of different theories we could have here. Is it inaccessible? So now we're going to look at the experiment that we ran to test this. So here's an earlier version of the start page with the disclaimers. And if you remember, one of our goals was to educate users on how to find benefits. We're working with a team of people who are all coming in with different assumptions and their own personal preferences about what information they would like to see here if they were the user, but none of us were the user, so we need to really test out real users to get that information. We designed this version after doing an early round of user interviews, so we had already been through the analytics cycle once at this point, but as you saw before, the data was still showing that this was a pain point. So some of our team felt that users might be worried about their personal information being stored. That's why we have that top one. We were also concerned about people leaving questions blank and then just not getting results because the questions were optional. There's only a few required questions. And we knew that many users in the interviews were confused that the tool was not an application and that they still had to go to the agencies to apply. So that's how we came up with these. But we found, we felt like we needed to test it because it still wasn't giving us quite the results that we had hoped for. So we created a prototype and we got a group of users to test it without them knowing that after they clicked continue from the start page, they would see these questions and not be able to go back. So we wanted to keep it as authentic as possible to how the real experience might be, to see how much people actually read the instructions and how much of it stuck with them. So let's recreate the experiment right here. Number 1, how many people think it's true?
Based on the last slide you showed?
Yeah. It's okay if you weren't reading it very closely. That's part of the experiment. How many people think that number 1 is true? How many people think it's false?
False.
Does everybody think it's false?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, true. How many people think it's true? How many people think it's false? Okay, and number 3, how many people think it's true? And how many people think it's false? All right. Look at that. You guys nailed it. I wrote in my notes that like I was kind of prepped for people to not get all those right. So it was like, yeah, just like in our original experiment, there's some confusion. But you guys nailed it. You were really paying attention, and I was kind of like, thought I could slip that one by you. So hats off to you. But yeah, in the real experiment, there was some confusion around this. Sometimes the results are not always what you want to see, but experiments like this help you to narrow down the cause of confusion and give you a chance to resolve the issue. So I think sometimes analytics can be used to like fluff ourselves up a little bit and make ourselves feel a little bit better. But when we kind of critically think about the assumptions that we're bringing into design and then use data to test those assumptions out and validate them, or in this case, invalidate our assumptions, it helps us to know our users better and get better at designing good experiences for them. So here's the implementation of a new strategy. Here's what we did to address that. We shortened the text and bolded it. When I screenshotted it, it's kind of this yellowish color, but it's really a little bit more white than that. And we felt that the main issue was that people were just not reading it. So even right here, you can hear the assumption that I'm bringing into this next round. And so then we're gonna have to test that assumption too. Even everything we learn still comes with a deeper assumption, but we're narrowing it down and getting closer and closer to the truth. So we changed the order to put the info that we felt was most critical at the top, which is that it's not an application. And now that we finish this implementation, we put out something new that we think is better, we go back and we do the whole thing over again. So looking at measurement again, with each round we're refining our questions and testing different hypotheses as we get closer to cracking the code and understanding our users' pain points. So we're testing new assumptions. Users who think it's an application will give up. That's one assumption we brought into it. Users are concerned about their data being stored. We don't actually know if that's true, and we don't know if that will actually impact their ability to get to the end. Maybe they have a concern, but it's not that big of a deal, and they're going to go through it. So that was something that we're assuming that we can test and we can figure that out. Are users actually reading the text? And do users understand what it means when they read it? So even though those are like two obvious, simple little things, they have to be tested kind of separately, and they result in two separate implementations. If what we find out is like people are reading everything but they don't understand it, we rewrite it in one way, and if we find that, okay, they understand it, it's written well, but they're just not reading it, we rewrite it in a different way. So I want you to take a minute or two and think about one or two ways that you could test. Sorry, my mouse is gone. There we go. Think about one or two ways that you could test one of these assumptions, and like what data would you collect, or what experiment would you design if you were going to test out. Pick one of these if you're going to test it out.
The second one would probably be the easiest to measure.
What would you do to measure that?
Yes, outbound links or conversions or.
The second one being users are concerned, or the one, or I guess for me the first bullet is like a category, like we're testing the new assumptions. So it's like, are you saying this? Which one are you saying? If you will just say it for me. Sorry. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I guess just in terms of being able to measure something, it seems like the second one would be the easiest to measure. The first one just seems like a statement.
This number one and this number two? Or this number one and this number two? That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Read it
Number one
again.
and number two?
Which one are you saying?
I mean, it's probably the last bullet. I mean, that would be the number of applications gone up.
Yeah. that-
Users who think it's an application will give up. That's the one that you think we would test with outbound links?
Applying on a different agency's website.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I thought I wrote down some ideas. Yeah, that was definitely one I was thinking about. So if you're thinking about users who think it's an application will give up, you would see how many of them apply on the agency's website. What would you compare that to? How would you know that it's going better?
I mean, I suppose you could do some sort of A/B testing of if you had like a call-out box that just says, that sort of spells out what you spelled out here, that helps people understand that they can go elsewhere to accomplish something. And then measure that as best you can.
Yeah, have the call out like this and have a version that doesn't have it. I think that's one thing that I would try as well. That does still assume that the people that have the call out box are reading it, but we'd be able to see if there's any difference there. So if there's no difference, that might mean that they're just not reading it, or it might mean that they don't care, or they don't need that information. I think I would try designing a prototype that has this is not an application super big and make it really, really obvious. I might also add in some user testing here to have someone that's like a user interview, I want to say, like a live user interview to talk through with them and kind of just be having them narrate their thought process. That can be really helpful as well. They might say like, oh yeah, I'm going to apply now, and they might be confused. So that's really, really good to have. Anyone else? How else would you put some of these assumptions to the test?
If they're reading,
Oh.
sorry.
Sorry.
Please, you go first.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, I've done something similar using Crazy Egg, which is a paid tool, but it does give you some heat maps, so you can see where there are clicks on, static text or elements on a page where users might think that it is, or if they're not actually reading it and they're trying to click somewhere to submit something, that can help you, and it's also like a easily digestible visual for clients to understand how people are interacting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually did do a crazy egg analysis on this, and that was helpful for me around a few different areas. One of them, I'm going to go back to show the visual here. So we found, and this was towards the end of the project actually, and it never got implemented, but I had a recommendation to take out this key eligibility criteria section on mobile, at least on mobile, because we had video recordings on Crazy Egg as well. So I watched the recordings, and we were watching someone go through this on mobile, and they were just scrolling like forever to get down to that link. Their whole phone was just accordion, and they couldn't even see the link on the bottom because it had gotten so long. On desktop, I don't think it's too bad, but it's still a lot of real estate that is, especially when you're about to convert. When someone's about to convert, if you were in the e-commerce world, you wouldn't be giving them a bunch of information right when they're about to buy something. You would say, go, go, go. And it's a little bit different in government. Our job is to educate, not just to sell things, but at the same time, the way people's attention spans work on computers, sometimes they can get distracted if you are throwing a lot of things at them, and especially when they've already gone through this process, they probably want to click the link. They probably want to see, they probably want to apply for those benefits. So we're kind of making them work for it a little bit here. So that's something that came out of that Crazy Egg analysis. Bruna had one, and then I'll go
I was
back
just
to you.
going to say for the reading content, you could combine the question, are users reading the text? You could combine a few different metrics potentially to try to make some assumptions, like engagement time or if it's the directions and they're like really prominent, maybe this wouldn't be as relevant, but if it was something maybe deeper in the page, like scroll depth, and then I was gonna say, yeah, using something like Hotjar to do some session recordings to actually see, you know, are they lingering on the section? Can you see any interactions?
Yeah. Yeah, how many folks here, either you or your team uses like Crazy Egg, Hotjar, or something like that? A little more than half? Nice. Cool. Anybody else have any that they wanted to add in here? Yeah, sorry, I forgot you were raised your hand.
Yeah, no, I wonder if on the page, if when they get to this step, which is like where you want them to convert, right? Are those accordions expanded or are they collapsed when you go there?
Yeah, they collapse. There is, so it'll look like this. So you see there's this expand all button.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to expand all of them, they can, which we didn't find many people clicked on that, and it's not even always a greater user experience, because if you have 2, it's probably pretty good, but if you have like 5, to expand all of them all at once might make it hard to navigate. So you can do expand all, or you can just click on them one at a time, and there's also, you can use the keyboard as well to do that.
And do you measure those clicks?
Yes.
Because that would be kind of interesting. There's also, you know, you have, before you get to that step, you have an important box, a link in there, which
Yeah.
might distract them,
Yeah.
you know, because they're looking for a link, right?
Yeah, so going back, there were those 2 drop-off points at the end. One, number 5, was people get to this page and they don't click. So it's basically like 50% of the people who get to this page right here do not click to open any accordions. And some of those people, there's a disclaimer that some of those people don't even have any accordions because they didn't qualify for anything. So that's part of it. I think if we were to take that out, that's probably about 20% of the users, something like that. So that would get it to, let's say, 70% of people click on something. That still leaves 30% who get here and they're just like, okay, maybe not the benefits that I wanted, or who knows where it is. But it is very possible that they see this important, they see the expand all, and they're not used to this tool. Like, that's one of the things that I think we forgot a lot as the people that were working on this for 2 years. People would, in user testing, sometimes just kind of like fly through it, and they didn't even realize that they were at the end. And it's like, there's the results, and they're just like keep scrolling, and they might click. There's also a whole big, this is a big issue, there's a really large top nav on USA.gov that has a whole bunch of links on it. And that's distracting too. Kind of going back to the e-commerce idea, you're probably not going to have all of that there. You're not going to try to get people to navigate away from the page when they're on their results page. If you were on like a sales page, you would probably hide you might have like a back button, but you would hide a lot of your other navigational buttons. So that was another thing that I kind of threw out as a possible idea. We didn't end up doing it, but yeah, that important box is a really good one. That was something that I also flagged as like, there's something in our hearts that we really want to like educate people and make sure that they know everything that they need to know. But as we do that, we're adding hurdles, you know, and if you're in the UX space, you know that the more stuff you put in front of people, the more you get drop off. You know, every question you add to a form is going to reduce the number of people that answer it. Bruna.
I have a question, and if this is getting too much into the tactical pieces of it, which you said you weren't going to talk about, then...
We can talk about whatever. I've got like 5 more slides maybe, and they're pretty quick. So.
Okay, perfect. I'm wondering, because this is such a sequential process, right? And you're trying to measure all of these different interactions. And the question about, you know, did you tag the accordions? Were you tagging using like CSS? Like how was the process there, or were you using the data layer?
Yeah,
How?
I was using the data layer,
Okay.
and
That's
it
a whole
was a whole can of worms. It was very complicated and a lot of work. This was a single page app, React single page app. So it made it very tricky. Typically, I would be able to say, so in this case, it was like a multiple page, like 4 or 5 pages, like screens that they see, but they were all one page in technical terms. So what we would normally do, and they also, the buttons didn't always have classes, so we're usually, like if you were to inspect a website, you can see there's like the A tag, and in there it's like href equals, and it has the link, and then usually after the link it'll say like class equals button blue rounded, things like that. There might be an ID field in there as well. There might be a handful of different fields. We can take any of those using Google Tag Manager and use those to trigger an event that's like button click, and we can also use the text of the button. This was available in English and Spanish, so any text would have to be done twice if we were using that. And also if someone uses like the translate option to just translate their whole website into French, for example, it wouldn't fire the tag for that. Our user base we weren't expecting many people other than those 2 languages, but we wanted to have that as an option. And yeah, so we weren't able to distinguish between buttons on different pages without using the data layer. So we had to work with the developers. It was kind of one of those spots that's like a little bit out of my wheelhouse and a little bit out of their wheelhouse. Like it's a little bit too far for them in this way and too far for me in that way. We were both like, I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do here, but I think it's like this. And they were kind of like, okay, I guess I got it, So that part was a little tricky. We made it work. I knew what I needed, from them, but I didn't know how to
How do you implement?
tell you how to do it. And they were kind of like, all right, and it worked out. So we had to make these like virtual page parameters basically to say like what page is it on. We also had to do eligible versus ineligible. You don't see it here, but there's actually, as you scroll down, it says benefits that you did not qualify for, and there's a link there, and that takes them, here's all the other benefits that you didn't qualify for. And that was also kind of controversial, as we were like, should we even show this to people or not? But we felt like there were people that either they didn't complete the application or the questionnaire all the way, or maybe they were doing it in more of like an exploratory way, like they just wanted to see what was out there. So we wanted to give them that option of like, here, you can see what is out there if you maybe had a slightly different situation. Like maybe they don't know their grandparents, maybe they're doing it for someone else and they don't know the exact data. So we had to do all of this to kind of zero it in and to be able to say, okay, eligible versus ineligible. And yeah, which page of it are they on? Which life experience are they in? And eventually we got it all to work, but it was a big experience, big challenge. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. We'll have a little bit of time for questions as well. We're getting pretty close to the end of our time. I think we're pretty much at the end of our time. So this is all I have left. If you need to leave, I won't blame you. But so the project I referenced earlier was one of my favorite projects, and sadly it was canceled by the government back in February. Despite that, I'm very proud of the work that we accomplished, and I know that our client was as well. Our team was very well integrated. We were all on the same page about the goals, and it led to continuous improvement. I want to be clear, it doesn't mean you'll always get things right on the first try. I know I said that the analytics cycle was a wheel, but it's really more like a spiral, because as you keep going around, you get closer and closer to unlocking the mystery of why users behave the way they do. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So here's a little comparison between a more linear model of analytics and the cyclical model that I'm advocating for. So on the left, we have the linear model, more of the checklist approach, reporting KPIs that someone asked for versus identifying KPIs that can prove or disprove your assumptions. Linear analytics, we have creating charts that make it look like you worked really hard on them. That is a thing. We all do that, even if we don't think we do. Like we want people to see that we worked on this thing, even if it's not necessarily providing the right data to answer their questions. It shows that we worked really hard on it because we put in all these cool visualizations. I love visualizations more than most people, but at the end of the day, what we really need are charts that answer questions and drive strategy. They don't always need to be very complicated at all. And you saw the only chart I showed today was a bar chart with only one series. It was very simple, but it helped us zero in on 3 pain points. So it gave us 3 follow-up things that we could do just from one simple chart. On the left, we have analyzing data as much as possible. That's a trap that's super easy to fall into. We want to get it all, analyze everything. But on the right, we have highlighting pain points and focusing our data collection on unanswered questions. So we're going to get a lot farther if we are focusing on the things that really matter, on those big pain points. We did not spend a lot of time on, I think it was 2, 3, and 4. Those 3 where you could see the line kind of stayed at the same level. Because even if we did everything we could possibly do to make it better, we're looking at going from 95% to 98% maybe. We're not going to really move the needle there at all. On the left, we have trying to find a win to make the team look good. We're all guilty of that a little bit, probably. And on the right, we have trying to learn and challenge our assumptions. That's what we really want to do. Always be getting better, growing, challenging our own assumptions, even if it means we are bringing to light our own losses, our own assumptions that were wrong. And then on the left, finally, we're siloed from the team. It's lonely and it's boring. I've had those experiences where you're in this, like, somebody is asking for this data and I'm not really talking to anyone else on the team and I just have to give it to them, and it's a pretty boring way to work, honestly. And on the right, you're integrated with the team and you're having fun. You're all working together, getting to kind of put your opinions in, getting to hear what other people think, understanding the goals, being connected to other people's work, and your analyses are directly related to the strategies that other people on your team are trying out. Okay, sorry guys, does anyone have to go right now? Okay, I'll try to wrap it up. I just have 1 or 2 more. So integrating analytics into the scope of work. I also want to briefly touch on how we can better scope out our projects to integrate analytics throughout. I see that as one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. If we haven't properly integrated analytics into the scope of work at the beginning, it can limit how much we're able to do later on. So this is taken directly from a scope of work that I created for one of my current clients with Axolotl. They're a small nonprofit with a very small website, but I used a very similar roadmap when I was on an SBA project earlier this year as well. So this one, this is just kind of one task out of the scope of work. Google Analytics, baseline analysis, and data discovery. And I have it scoped for just 10 hours. We're doing things pretty lean because it's a pretty small website. So that's exploring the data that's currently in GA4, highlighting the trends, looking for the anomalies, troubleshooting anything that looks suspicious, and our deliverable is resulting in strong understanding of the current trends, as well as the reliability and accuracy of the data. So this is the discovery, a big part of the discovery process around data. And yeah, in this we integrate analytics right from the beginning, and we create a foundation that benefits future work, both analytics work as well as all the other work streams, because they're gonna also be able to take our learnings and apply it to their work. So the main difference is that with a government client, there would probably be a larger website and there would be more stakeholder review time. So I'd probably put this at like 20 to 30 hours for this task if we were doing it with a government client. And just kind of integrating that into your product roadmap. So I like the 4 Ds, discovery, design, development, delivery, kind of when I'm thinking about the product roadmap in general, and where analytics fits in here. So this is a really simplified roadmap that I made, kind of adding in some of the common tasks that go into a typical website redesign project. It's a little bit more analytics heavy, but I try to throw in other elements as well. And yeah, you'll see like goals and KPIs, user research. This is all of our discovery at the beginning and our content audit, that kind of stuff. Then in design, we're doing the wireframes, testing prototypes, IA redesign, content, SEO strategy. And each one of those is giving us more opportunities. Like we should be giving us more opportunities to collect data. So whenever we redesign the IA, whenever we're putting out a new SEO strategy, we can look at the keywords, we can see how that might be moving up or down, our rank might be moving up or down. And at each stage, we should be integrating analytics. And you'll see at the delivery stage, when we normally would just be kind of QAing and wrapping up, this is where we should be continuing to test out and refine our designs. And the bottom line is to be collecting data and testing out assumptions as soon as we can. To improve our product, we have to start by improving our own understanding of our users. So that's basically it. I have like a bonus slide, but we don't really have time to get to it. So thank you.